Here we go.
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition. Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! This is escape, then we're the pod.
Welcome back to Star Wars Escape Pod, and a very fun episode tonight. Do not judge it by the title, whatever it is, whatever it ends up being, because tonight is going to be a bit of fun going through some gripes that we may all have in regards to our favorite movies and TV shows and whatever else. And we've got our good friends Blake, Bryce, and Kyle on tonight going through this, and we may or may not have Kirk join us as well. We'll see about that. But yeah, let's dive right in, and I'll explain the rules of the game.
Another happy landing.
All right, hello, people. Hello. Oh, there we go. There we
Hello there.
Unmuted. There we go.
Awesome.
Sound like an empty room.
This is the Gripes episode. Wait a second.
That's your first gripe. Josh can't control the mute buttons right.
Yeah.
It's because he's on the button just in case we go a bit too hard.
I pull it back.
Yeah.
Hold him back. Yeah. Get that Yoda gag in there. This is what it sounds like.
That's me.
You're gonna be hearing a lot of that
when I'm
tonight.
watching stuff I don't like.
Yeah.
You haven't learned anything.
That was my favorite.
Oh man. Okay.
You got the Qui-Gon?
Do I have a quite? Yeah.
There's always a bigger fish.
I love those.
For those people who don't know, if you've never played Star Wars Galactic Battlegrounds, they hired some knockoff actors to reproduce the voices in a really terrible fashion, and these
Well, they
are.
weren't paid very much.
I don't think they were paid at all.
They just took dudes off the street. You look like Qui-Gon.
Yeah, exactly.
Equivalent of fake Santa at the mall.
Exactly.
All
Qui-Gon
right.
bin.
So we got a really fun episode tonight. This is Star Wars Gripes, and we are only playing this once because if we kept playing this game, people might stop listening to this podcast. But here's the rules of the game. We're making a bit of a game out of it. Because I thought to myself when we were approaching the date to do this, I thought, okay, how can we make this fun and not super depressing?
Yeah.
About complaining about Star Wars, because we love Star Wars. That's why we're all here.
Passionate about it.
We're
care.
We all
passionate.
love Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We all love Star Wars. But that being said, I don't think anyone on this planet loves 100% of Star Wars. I mean, even if you do love every single book and TV show, I'm sure there's like a comic that you hadn't quite liked or whatever, right? Like character maybe you didn't connect with. There's always something. There's always the little 0.02% of Star Wars that you just might not connect with, right? For some of us, it might even be 50%. For some of us, it could be like 20%, whatever. There's entire movies that people consider a write-off, and we all got our own opinions, and that's sort of the colorful part of the evening.
I've got an idea too to follow up on this. I think we should do this every decade because I feel like every 10 years people's opinions change.
Yeah,
So
that's a good
10
point.
years ago people would have absolutely hated the prequels. Now they're not so bad.
So everyone look out for podcast number 2000, and we might do this again.
I'm gonna explode if I can't
Yeah.
write until I'm 40.
Have you guys,
Bottle it all up.
Seen that meme? Have you guys seen that meme where the guy, it's like it shows the beginning and it's like, oh, this is terrible, and then 5 years later it's, hey, it's okay, and then 10 years after that, the sacred texts.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, exactly. Such a meme. So in order to keep this completely as neutral as possible, I have used our good virtual friend Chat GPT 3.5 to come up with a list of 20 common Star Wars gripes, and they will be genre specific, so it'll be very generalized, And when it comes up that you might have something to add on or tack on an example as to, i.e., this is why this is relevant, definitely that's the time to bring it up. So I'm sure you all have a list. I'm sure you all have ideas in your head as to things you don't like. So, if we go through this entire list of 20 and for some reason the opportunity to present something has not come up, we'll dish that out all at the end. But I will say, if there is something that comes up on this list that you think is perhaps Chat GPT was wrong, perhaps it might be something that we consider the fandom we need to like move on from. Perhaps there's a few gripes here that might be outdated. Perhaps it's like a one of those things. It's like a complaint of the past, if you will, right? And that's cool too. It's going to be a fun evening of pointing out things that we're still kind of things that bother us still, things that irk us, and then also things that I think we can try and kind of heal from,
Yeah, this is Star Wars therapy.
Is it AA?
Yeah,
for Star Wars.
Hello, my name is Kyle. I love Star Wars.
Hi, Kyle.
Yeah.
My name is Josh, everybody. I love Star Wars.
Hi, Josh.
Hi, Josh. Setting the tone.
So the last thing I'll mention about this list is it is because it's generated through an AI generator. The order of these things was completely random. If it wasn't random, I don't know which source it's pulling it from, but this is by no means of sort of worst to least worst or whatever. There's no particular personal bias as to the order that this is in. And I'm pointing that out for a reason, because our first one, and I will read as Chat GPT says this, okay? So I'll just kind of quote what we got out of the AI, out of the prompt, and then we'll kind of go from there.
I think we should refer to it as Chat 3PO, and you should read it as
Chat 3PO.
C3PO voice.
Let's do the Chat 3PO. I'm not going to do the voice. Okay, so first one. Sequel trilogy criticisms. Many fans expressed dissatisfaction with the direction and storytelling of the sequel trilogy, feeling it didn't live up to the original trilogy. And that's all it says. So how do we respond to this?
It's so generic.
It is very generic.
I feel like it just like that was probably the first thing that came up off like a Google search, and they just threw it in.
Yeah, maybe. But there is 20 unique things on this list.
I swear 25% of the internet is dedicated to this topic.
Maybe. At this point, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Bryce, maybe we can start with you. Maybe it just like Mike's yours for a minute. What are your feelings on this one?
I don't know what Chat GPT is talking about here. Like, it's kind of out of left field for me. I don't know. We've all even like talked about this.
Have you
times.
rewatched The Last Jedi since it was in theaters?
No. Yeah. I don't think I've watched. I maybe have watched Force Awakens a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't even know if I watched it all the way through, but yeah. What else? What is there to say about this that hasn't already been like said? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, it is a pretty relevant gripe, but like for those people who might be out there listening that absolutely love these movies, what would you say to those people as to sort of how you differ from, not sitting down to rewatch them?
That's interesting.
I think there's a lot of lacking writing to it. Like, I think that the Disney just kind of threw it out as fast as they could, and they didn't look at the lure good enough. You know what I mean? Because there's so many iconic scenes that they could have done. Like if you literally just put Chewie, Luke, Han, and Leia in the cockpit of that Millennium Falcon right there, I guarantee people would have cried in the theaters. You know what I mean?
It's true.
And
the
once
whole internet was
do you see them together.
Movie.
Yeah. And then they go and they pull this where it's, Luke's in the first movie for 5 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think for me is like both the prequel. What I always come back to with this trilogy is that the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy feel like specific moments in time in the Star Wars timeline.
Mm-hmm.
And they're very separate to each other. And the sequel trilogy feels like more of a continuation on the original trilogy and not really its own thing.
Okay.
Like it doesn't feel separate enough.
Is that because we're still dealing with rebellion and still dealing with the?
I think so. It's
Empire?
just like you're just seeing the new Death Star again.
New stormtroopers.
You're just seeing the Empire come back. You're seeing the same characters. Like there are the same characters in like the prequel and the original trilogies. They share some characters, but I don't know. It's different, right? Like
yeah, I know what you're saying. What's funny is it's because I agree with you on that, but I also feel like it's not similar enough in ways that, to me, the prequels and the original trilogy feel more connected. Where this, if you just took out the lightsabers and some character names, it could just be its own sci-fi.
Yeah.
Like I feel like they threw in Luke and Yoda and Han and Leia just to kind of appease the older generation, and then the older generation's going, dude, you screwed it up. Whereas the younger generation's looking at this as a whole new movie sort of thing, too, to bring them into Star Wars. So I get where the young people would really love it. But
the same thing with the prequels.
As us older people. Yeah.
Yeah, my feelings on it are pretty similar to that. I mean, especially after we talked about the last couple of weeks, we've done a bit of a trio of episodes which have talked about the what ifs as to if George had done the sequels, if Colin Trevorrow had done episode 9, if Alan Dean Foster had his way with things. And, it's neat to think about kind of what could have been. I think I keep just coming back to, because I've got a lot of complaints about those movies, but I keep coming back to, it is not George Lucas's story. And that is the reason I just don't connect with these stories. I
will go one step lower than that and say they also just didn't have one cohesive idea, which you can really feel once you get towards the end. It just kind of felt like each.
That's certainly tied into that's certainly tied into it.
If it was all one fully written story, pre-planned, it made a huge difference, I think. Because J.J. Abrams, I think, was the one who openly said that they just let everybody kind of do whatever they wanted. Yeah. Which feels counterintuitive considering they got rid of the EU to make one cohesive universe and then didn't cohesively write the stories.
Yeah. So, in order to move on from this, sort of the last thing to wrap this one up is this a gripe that people can move on from?
People moved on from the prequels.
People moved on from the prequels.
I think we'll have to. I mean, I don't want to think about a possibility where I might be okay.
I'm
like that. It's kind of depressing, but it might happen, right?
Who am I? Yeah. What am I?
So I think here's a helpful way to move on from this, because I've got many problems that make it impossible to think that I can ever move on from it. But I think that as time goes by and people like the recently promoted Dave Filoni to Chief Creative Officer, is very
the applause button.
Oh yeah. Where is that?
Yeah. Throw that applause, and that's like the greatest thing they've done in a long time.
Yeah. Woo. Okay.
Here.
Yeah.
So, like the recently promoted Dave Filoni, I mean, like stories that can come out of that guy's head might actually sort of bridge the gap a little bit. And, even though the movies aren't sort of the best, in my opinion, I think, there are ways to sort of smooth over the rough patches or the gaping holes, if you will, with the continuity or whatever. And, it's sort of a hopeful idea that perhaps one day they will make sense, these stories.
Well, you know what? They made an entire movie about explaining why there was an exhaust port that led to the center of the Death Star to blow it up.
Exactly.
So maybe we should think about the things we don't like about the sequel trilogy as story ideas.
To paraphrase Jenner, so fandoms are built on hope.
That's true. That's all we can do now, right? We don't really have...
All right, number 2 on the list, character arcs. Complaints about inconsistent or underdeveloped character arcs, particularly for characters like Finn and Rey. One of the complaints, I guess, that ties in with the first gripe here is that there are characters, obviously, that were great characters in those movies that didn't really get served justice too well. I think a lot of people might even say the same about characters like General Grievous, who sort of popped out of left field in Revenge of the Sith. Great character. If you watch the Clone Wars, you'd love General Grievous.
Yeah.
For those of you who
still like the
just the films.
General Grievous from the
Right,
The
right.
Gandhi
So this might be a gripe for you, right? Because you love, you like the prequels and love the character of General Grievous, right? So like, this is a good example. Like, a gripe would be on your behalf, like, oh, I wish that we had that true sort of Gandhi Tartakovsky version adapted into the movie.
Yeah, 100%. That's something that's always bothered me because that was the original canon. It was like this really hardcore Jedi killing assassin. And then we got the 3D Clone Wars, who's kind of this bumbling bad guy, kind of a mustache twirly bad guy that
always
loses
running
stuff.
away.
Yep. He's a coward.
Yeah.
He'll run as he always does.
Yeah. So yeah, well, I think who's got any more characters that weren't Boba Fett? I mean,
what they did to Boba Fett, yeah.
Look what they've done to my boy.
My sweet boy.
it's like from the Goblet of Fire that Robert Pattinson's dad in the movie. My boy.
That's very accurate.
The most memeable part of the movie.
There's the Naboo celebration music going on in the back.
Yeah,
In the background.
yeah.
Cheering and having fun.
I gotta throw it out there though. Like fans way back in, fans in the original trilogy. I mean, maybe Kyle can relate to this. I mean, like how sad was it when you saw Return of the Jedi and Boba Fett just gets swallowed up in the ground by that Sarlacc?
Oh, he's like a punk.
Yeah. Okay. In the original trilogies, you kind of do want to see a lot more from him and everything. What he had, I think, 2 lines or something like that, and only like 12, 13 seconds of actual screen time.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like they could have done a lot more with him. But like moving into the newer movies and stuff like that. I want to say that the one character that really blew me away was actually Finn. I personally was like, oh, he's going to be the next Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I was going with it.
That's what the trailer.
They marketed it that way too.
Yeah, they did.
And I loved that idea. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying Rey can't be a Jedi too or whatever, but it's like, here, you're a Jedi. You're a Jedi. Everybody's a Jedi now, right? But I really wanted to see a development with Finn and Poe, because Poe was actually supposed to get killed off in the first one, but he was such a good actor, they rewrote him back in. So if they're able to make these little rewrite changes, man, they should have listened to the people, dude. They should have just listened to us.
The idea of an ex-Stormtrooper turned Jedi is pretty cool. Just saying.
Yeah, it is.
Exactly.
It is.
To me, that's a really good, a really awesome turn.
I mean, that spawns from Katarn, right? Kyle Katarn was an ex-Stormtrooper.
Yeah.
Was he a
Jedi.
Stormtrooper?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. I thought it was more like ISP.
I believe
or something.
so.
Yeah, but to add on to that, I think the casting is probably the strongest part of the sequel trilogies.
Yeah.
And John Williams. Yeah.
Yeah, and then John Williams, yeah.
For sure. We did mention the other day or the last week when we were talking about Colin Trevorrow's episode 9 possibility and what he would have done with Finn. And it doesn't seem like he would have been quite as sidelined as he ended up getting, in the movies that we did eventually get. So it would have been nice to have seen more of him. So yeah, he's definitely an underdeveloped character. I think, in regards to all this sequel stuff, I think it'll take a while for people to move on from all this stuff just because they're so recent, right?
I mean, look at the prequels, right? So like they came out starting in the late 90s. And I feel like people who grew up with them.
Yeah.
I was kind of the generation like just barely before that. I kind of grew up like pseudo with them. Well, like I watched the original trilogy before the prequels, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Or you grew up directly with the prequels.
Well, I had the special editions before.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, probably the same category as me then, where when I was a kid, it was like really popular. And then everyone hated on them for like our teen years.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of through university and then kind of came back around enjoying them again. I'd say probably like my mid 20s.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the big turnarounds when the sequel trilogy comes out, then everyone is like, okay, well, maybe that other stuff's not too bad.
Even before that,
right?
though.
Yeah.
At least for me.
Well, it will definitely.
Nostalgia started playing in, I think.
We just need some more crappy Star Wars movies to come out so we can appreciate maybe the sequel. I don't know.
Careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is it too soon for a sequel to the sequels?
Yeah.
Probably.
Because that is the next one that we're supposed to be getting, right? This is
It's supposed to be the story of Rey, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's the next one on the roster.
Sorry, what? What is it?
So at Celebration this past year, they announced 3 movies. It was there was
How did I not hear about this?
Yeah, there was Dave Filoni's New Republic movie. There's a New Jedi Order movie with Rey and the New Jedi Order after Episode 9, and there's a movie in the Dawn of the Jedi era written by what's his name that did Logan, that dude. He's doing it. And I'm looking forward to that one a lot. But like they made it seem like the Rey one is definitely the first one that they're doing. Because Dave's is a while off. He's busy with the shows at the moment. And the Dawn of the Jedi one is still just kind of a working concept at the moment. But they announced it. Kind of like that X-Wing movie that I don't think is going anywhere. The Rogue Squadron movie by Patty Jenkins.
Yeah.
Sadly, I don't think we're going to see the light of day with that one. But I think this is the next one. The next Rey chapter, is the next Star Wars movie. So is it too soon for that movie?
Is it after the sequels?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's now like a full-on Jedi, like doing her thing.
Yeah, it's a sequel to the sequels.
Is it too soon?
I think it might be too soon.
It might not be soon enough if they do the right. Really, I don't know.
That's true. That's true.
They got a lot of explaining to do.
Yeah, that's true, Kyle. That's true, Kyle. If it ends up being a good movie, it might be
75% flashbacks.
It might be necessary for it to come out as soon as possible, in order to save some reputation.
As long as Finn's there and he yells Rey, I'm happy.
Okay, moving on to the next one.
I gotta tell you something. What the hell you had to tell her?
Moving
I'll
on
tell
to
you later.
Tell you later. Never gets told.
No.
Here's our third one on the list. Treatment of Luke Skywalker. Some fans were disappointed with how Luke Skywalker was portrayed in The Last Jedi, feeling it deviated from his established character. This is its own point, probably because it is such a big one to most people as to why they didn't like that movie. So perhaps we can go around and just say our personal feelings on this. I don't have a crazy amount of problems as much as I used to with this. Only because it's the movie that has the most of Luke Skywalker out of the 3, and that I appreciate. So I in a world in which he's not in the movie at all, even though they hype it up to be like Episode 7, I found myself even more disappointed because he ended up not being in the movie at all, except for like 2 seconds. So I have less of a problem with this as time gone by, even though it wasn't a great movie. And I'm not sure how I feel about him sort of being all sad and depressed, although I do kind of get the idea. He's like, no matter how old you are, you're not invulnerable to failure. We've seen Luke Skywalker, or Yoda, when, fights Emperor Palpatine in Episode 3, even he says, failed I have. Into exile I must go. And this dude's like 900 years old. So like, it's not super far-fetched. I think just the way they approached it may have been not what people were hoping. So eventually, I think I could move on from this. But I don't know.
Yeah, I guess I would say it bothers me less than when it came out.
Yeah.
Still,
I love Luke. Sorry,
Kyle. Biggest issue.
No. You say what you're saying.
Is it still feels like just repeating the original trilogy. It's kind of like Luke was his character, overcame all these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I wanted something more unique.
Yeah, Kyle, what about you?
Okay, I was gonna say, for me, I don't think Luke was Luke in those other. Like I don't know who, like the writing for him. It for me, it didn't feel like he was him.
Mm-hmm.
Like they may have had Mark Hamill playing this guy called Luke, but it wasn't Luke Skywalker.
Skin. Yeah, I agree with that too.
Yeah,
I think I really wanted to see Luke in a Ben Kenobi position to Rey.
Yeah,
where his arc is done, right? Like his character development is done. He should be at like, he doesn't have to be perfect, right? Because no one's perfect. Even Ben Kenobi, like Alec Guinness, he wasn't perfect. He had some weird, views on the Jedi Order and stuff. And especially when he was like training Luke and not telling him who his dad was and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But I think Luke, because when he's still developing, I didn't understand if they wanted him to be kind of a main character in the sequel trilogy, or he's like a, like a supporting character. And I feel like he really should have been a supporting character because he took the light away from some characters that should have been the main characters.
Right.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Are you referring to the end battle when you say that? Like the duel?
Just in general, it felt more like we were like he was still developing, or like it was more about Luke. It was like Luke's story. I mean, I know a lot of it's flashbacks, but it's all about like finding Luke and doing that.
Do you think it would have been better for the sequels to started with the story of Luke Skywalker and then pass the torch to new characters rather than what they did?
Yeah.
With new characters out of the grill, and
because like what I wanted to feel was what I felt in The Mandalorian when you see Luke. That's what I want. I want like
same.
I want to see like, he's like at his peak power. I want to
like
feel
all peaceful and stuff.
Yeah.
With how he talks and how he acts. Like
because
we've like
invested in the original trilogy as people that have watched that, right? And we want the satisfaction of investing in a character's story and seeing them be successful. You don't want to invest in a story and then they turn out to be like a hobo. It's like,
Right.
That's not fun.
No, it's true.
My boy.
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
So you have like an estranged parent, and when you last saw them, they were like astronauts, and you finally find them again, and yeah, they're homeless.
Yeah, they're your heroes, right? You don't want to see your
Here's a fourth one for us. Overemphasis on nostalgia. Criticisms regarding the reliance on nostalgia, with some feelings that new films lean too heavily on reusing similar or familiar plot elements. This is also probably very relatable to the other three things so far. But here's an example for you. A third Death Star, Star Killer Base. I mean, we already had in the one trilogy, we had 2 Death Stars, and then in the third trilogy, we've had, a planet-killing weapon. And then in the third movie of that third trilogy, we had planet-killing Star Destroyers, which are all just mini Death Stars. And it was like, okay, so technically we've had like the Death Star like done, 20 times, 50 times over if you count every single individual Star Destroyer. So, what's up?
Right? There's such an issue with power crawl. Like, it's like, we have to have something like world ending in order for people to care about the plot. That's not true. Like, you see Andor, like that was the most successful, and it's just about a small time, thing that is occurring in the galaxy. But if you make the tension high enough, and you care about the characters and their lives, right? Like it's gonna feel world ending.
Yeah, I would almost argue that it worked against them in this trilogy, where there wasn't enough investment into what the bad guy's plan was, and it was so incomprehensible to what was going on that it just felt, I guess, gimmicky in the background of what was happening.
Yeah.
The part I didn't like about that was where they had like the radio tower, and they're like, okay, everybody, we got to blow up this radio tower and all the ships are going to drop. And then they blow up the radio tower, and the guy's like, oh, we're just going to take over it on this one. We can just put it on this ship. It's just like, why didn't you just start it with it on the damn ship?
Oh, jeez. Yeah. The nostalgia button is pressed a little too hard in episode 7, I would say as well. Very much so. I think that's where.
What about this? Well, I was gonna say, what about this? What about like how they had the planet killing, death planet in the first one? What if it was a build up to that being the end thing, and them getting shot off at a planet and they blow up that? Like there's so many
like
things.
The third movie being that,
built it up.
Yeah. I think that would be better too. Build up to that thing.
Yeah.
Instead of all movies needing a thing.
Right. Would have been a bit more under control.
I will say, Josh, in regards to what you were saying with too much nostalgia along those lines, I think Disney did have a really hard situation where they want to do something that people are going to feel familiar and enjoy and not be too different. So I think they erred on the side of caution. As opposed to doing something more unique, which also could have backfired really badly. And people were like, this is so weird, it's not Star Wars.
That
It's a really, really hard line to walk.
That leads us directly into our fifth point here. Maybe you can kick us off. It says Disney's influence, concerns about Disney's influence on the franchise leading to perceived commercialization and a departure from the series' roots.
That's not really what I was getting at, but
I mean, well, it overall, it touches up on like the power that Disney has over sort of.
Well, what I was getting at is less to do with it being a franchise thing, but then they have this property they invested in and they were cautious to not misuse it. I think they erred too much on too much of the same.
Yeah, Kyle, what do you feel about Disney's influence on this?
Ooh, I look. If I say something bad about Disney, I'll get canceled. Okay, so I just.
Hey, we all love Disney. We all love Disney. So, like, what are the concerns that you have?
That's right. We all love Disney.
Yeah. What kind of concerns do you have with sort of the power that they've had over like the departure from sort of what was an indie movie franchise once upon a time with George at the helm, and now at the board of a team of people looking at money and kind of deciding what's best to do for Disney. And
the first time that I noticed a real difference was the very first time that they showed the stormtroopers in The Force Awakens. As soon as they showed those guys, I was like, okay, they're selling this. It's more about the commercialism side of what Star Wars was. And it was within the first couple of flashes of the helmets. And I was like, the filming looks different. The cinematography looks different. The way that they're showing the stormtrooper itself or the character was different. And I was just like, I thought, okay, well, they're going to sell the crap out of this.
Is that Disney? Or is that the director,
and that's what
because that sounds like to me, I would think that'd be J.J. Abrams as opposed to something like
Well, they got more money for the better cameras. I bet you if Disney was in there at some points being like, I want close-ups of this, I want this, and you need to have that. To me is it's the commercialism. Disney's so much commercialism.
Yeah. Here's our next one, number 6. Pacing issues. Complaints about pacing and plot structure in certain movies with some feeling and the narrative was rushed or uneven. I'm going to throw
Attack of the Clones.
I'm going to throw a curveball in the mix. Yeah, because I was going to say Attack of the Clones. That's your favorite movie, Kyle.
I know, and it's and to go from young Anakin to this, and Padme's still the same age, and yeah. There is a lot that I do question. I still love the movie though.
I think that was so all of us who were Anakin's young age, we were like, yes, we can have Padme.
Dreams come true.
That's right.
Yeah,
she doesn't
dreams
age.
are real.
You see, Kyle, she doesn't age because she's an angel.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Okay.
Pacing issues. I remember I was watching a behind the scenes for the Phantom Menace, and there was a moment where George kind of, I guess he's just coming out of an initial screening of like the final cut, and he's like, I may have gone too far in a few places. And it's been used over and over again, that little snippet in front of like behind so many different like mashup reels and stuff like that. And I guess like if you keep watching it, there's one of the producers, I think it's Rick McCallum, he says like, well, in the last like 10 minutes of the movie, you've got the death of Qui-Gon, the explosion of like the Trade Federation ship, Qui-Gon's funeral, and the big celebration at the end of the movie.
And Jar Jar Binks is tripping and fumbling and killing droids.
Yeah, it's just like,
yeah, it does. Yes, yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah, there's some certain like sort of things to consider there, pacing out a movie. But I think they certainly all have their sort of pacing quirks. I mean, I certainly would have loved Revenge of the Sith to be a longer movie. It feels like the death of Count Dooku was so quick, and that duel could have been so much better.
It should have started a little earlier, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if it cut in where it does, I just feel like it could have been longer, just as a movie in general, just to explain more of like Anakin's story, his transition. People felt that was too rushed.
That was rushed, for sure.
That was rushed, yeah.
And I love that movie to smithereens, but I understand the complaint,
And you don't want to give up some runtime from the duel, do you?
No, of course not. Yeah, I mean, like that movie is incredibly reasonably length, like for the story it's trying to tell, you know. And I keep thinking to myself, like, okay, if George had his way in modern cinema right now, where it's more common for a director to just kind of throw out a 4-hour movie or whatever, you know, maybe we would have had that, right? I mean, he was flipping the bill. Like, it's not like he couldn't have done it.
Yeah, you got the reputation.
Yeah.
People will watch it.
People will watch it. Yeah.
Star Wars Revenge of the Sith Part 1.
I mean, look at the success of Endgame and Avatar, and you know, I mean, the Hobbit movies.
Hollows.
Yeah, I mean, well, those are split into 2 separate movies, but I mean, like movies that ended up coming out with an extended director's cut, whatever. The demand is so high, right? And you know, Justice League, the Zack Snyder edition,
that's what I'm thinking.
So much better than the theatrical version. I mean, it's not even a competition. Like if you look at the reviews for theatrical versus Zack Snyder edition, it's like night and day. It's crazy. So I mean, that movie certainly could have used more time to breathe, for sure. Cool. All right, let's move on to the next one. Number 7, character deaths. Discontent with how certain character deaths were handled, especially in the sequel trilogy. I think what it's getting at is Han Solo. How did we all feel about Han Solo? Kyle, maybe you can kick us off. What did you feel about Han Solo when you first watched episode 7?
Okay, first off, I want to say this. I didn't watch the movie for a while when it first came out. I didn't get to go right away. And I tried everywhere desperately not to see anything online or anything. And this dude was driving around with Han Solo dies written on the back of his SUV.
Like a bumper sticker?
And I was like, you ass. No. Literally in big, all over his back windshield. Han Solo
No
dies.
way.
And I was like, I'm dead serious, dude. I was like, you know, you asshat, man. Like, I couldn't believe it. And so when I went in there, I already knew he was going to die. And I was just like, no. The whole time, no. And then, the god dang monster's going to eat him. Nope, that didn't happen. Okay, so what's going to, you know. That's all I did for the first movie,
I was so anxious and just so anxious watching the entire film.
Yeah.
No! Oh! The jump scares.
Yeah. We made it.
This is it!
Yeah.
And of course, it's so obvious when it happens.
But then when it
the
finally
whole room
happened,
goes red.
Yeah, man. And I was just, and then finally it happened. And I was just like, it was real. I was hoping that he did that as a, it's not going to happen. He's joking everybody. Yeah. And I was like, as soon as he died, I was devastated. I was like, they literally took a real big part of Star Wars and kind of threw it right out the window in the first movie. If you're going to kill him off, do it in the third one. You know what I mean? Have a big ending to this one. Like people he's coming in the Millennium Falcon or something. Cool, yeah.
Or the second
Luke
one,
should have been at the end too.
I think a good spot for it would be the second one, right? Have a nice dark, middle movie, just like Empire, to kind of leave off on.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point, though. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he got caught in the carbonite in the end of that one. If he died at the end of the second one, there you go. You know what I mean?
It's true.
Right?
Yeah.
They kind of rhyme.
But yeah.
Like poetry. Yeah. It rhymes. Yeah. I don't, it's funny. Like, I never really cared too much about the death of Han Solo personally. I was like, you know what? That's a bit of a surprise. But at the time I was like, I can live with it. We still got Luke and Chewie and Leia, not foreseeing the death of Carrie Fisher and what they would have done with Luke's character in the next movie. So
I'm just picturing like a photo, all of them together, and then just keep adding X's across their face.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, it's like, where the heck is R2D2 this whole time? And all this stuff. So, because they're part of the family as well. But I just, I kept on thinking, okay, well, that is the least of my problems out of this entire movie. I had so many more bigger issues with the film, but other deaths, I guess, other
Count Dooku.
Uncertain character deaths were handled. I mean, Count Dooku. Were you happy with that one?
I was very surprised because he was such a huge villain, Attack of the Clones, and they offed him in like 15 minutes.
See, that was my whole gruntle with like the
like
pacing.
Smog.
The pacing.
I also hated them killing Smog in the beginning of the third movie.
Yeah.
For the Hobbit.
Right.
Just
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's fair. Just like, I don't know. Darth Maul, anyone?
yeah, but they
brought him
fixed
back.
it.
So like, but that counts.
Yeah, they brought it back.
That counts because it's discontent with how certain character deaths were handled. Deaths meaning, also counting the resurrection, Palpatine thrown in the mix.
Boba Fett.
I mean, like, out of Maul, Boba Fett, Palpatine, what works, what doesn't.
But they kind of fixed Boba Fett by making Django and having Django die really cool.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Django's always been awesome.
Yeah. But Django's like pseudo Boba, right? For the prequels.
Right.
Like, did have enough screen time? We're going to make billions of him!
You will be immortal.
We're going to make so many friggin' toys and minifigures. You're going to be immortal tomorrow. That's awesome.
Do I get a cut of each action figure?
Can I get 0.001 profit on all those toys?
Just a cent, George. That's all I need. 1 cent.
Where's the contract? Here's another one for you. 8. Expanded universe disregard. Fans upset with the removal of the expanded universe from canon, leading to the erasure of many beloved stories. I wouldn't say they were erased, but they were definitely sort of sidelined in our mental continuity.
Does it just mean the EU?
Yes, the now referred to as Star Wars Legends for anyone who's recently purchased an old Star Wars book. It's got the gold banner on it saying Legends. It means it's not part of the canon continuity. That was very shortly after Disney bought the company, actually. And I remember that kind of threw a lot of us off at the time who were expecting games like 1313, Force Unleashed 3. A lot of stuff like that ended up getting canceled. And there was another Republic Commando book that was supposed to be out at some point in the future that ended up getting canned. There was a whole bunch of stuff. And even Clone Wars was put on hold for a while until that was brought back.
It was canceled originally.
Canceled. Yeah. And then, eventually resurrected because of the fans. But that was canon material. But I mean, as far as like the original Thrawn trilogy, like how, I mean, you love those books.
Yep.
Like, so... in regards to the continuity of that in your head when it came to this is how the story continues after episode 6, and we ended up getting the announcement of these new movies, and therefore these books no longer matter. Like, to you, how did you feel about that? You must have been in mixed feelings. I was like excited for the new movies, but also like kind of sad that you're seeing something die. Like what was going through your head at the time?
It's been a number of years, so I think my feelings on it have been a bit tempered. I know at the time, though, I was quite bitter about it because there was a lot of EU stories that I really liked that I wanted to keep around. I'd say most of the Luke Skywalker post original trilogy stories are probably the ones that I'm most annoyed by. That includes the Thrawn trilogy and the characters like Mara Jade and their kids and Han and Leia's kids. I still really like the idea of the twins with Han and Leia's children. One turns to the dark side. I thought that was a cool story.
Yeah.
All that stuff I'm still annoyed by. Especially it left me watching these sequels trying to figure out if they were going to pull things or not. And then they never did.
I think they had a really good opportunity to take from what worked in the EU.
Yeah.
But it didn't seem like they did that as much as I would have liked them to. Because you don't have to take everything, right? I mean, like, for sure, there is some wacky stuff in the EU that I'm like, of course, it was, I'm not missing that kind of stuff, right?
I need my lizards.
A lot of good stuff. Yeah. Like, I think the triplets would have been a great idea for like kind of the first episode of the sequels, right? Like have the introduction to the new generation of the kind of the Star Wars Fellowship.
Yeah.
And it's a Disney movie, it would have been a great movie for kids to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of cool stuff going on. Like, yeah.
I don't know if it helps, but like in George's head, he never really looked at that stuff as canon. All the stuff that he did to him was canon, and all the other stuff was always the other stuff. So there was times when he looked at that stuff and sort of said, "Oh, I like that. I'm going to use that in my story." Like Ayla Secura, Quinlan Voss, Darth Maul's resurrection, stuff like that. But not all the time, right? Like Night Sisters, though, that was another one that made its way into Clone Wars, and I don't know how much of that was Dave Filoni, but like it was, it's cool. It's a cool idea. But But yeah, I think like a lot of us fans really felt quite attached to all the years of, I remember lots of my childhood years, spent reading like the Jedi Quest series, Jedi Apprentice.
Yeah.
A lot of those real good Anakin, Obi-Wan stories that kind of got me invested with those characters.
Actually,
seeing those kind of sent to the grave was like, oh man, gutting.
What's funny is that you touched on that. That's I mentioned Grievous earlier, and my other thing that I really wish they kept was Anakin when he fights Sarge Ventress. That's how he gets his eye.
Yeah, it's a scar.
And yeah,
that's a gripe I still have with Clone Wars that they never showed that.
No, I literally. So my wife just started watching Clone Wars, and I'm like, okay, we'll start at the beginning. We had a big conversation about if we should do it in chronological order or not.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, Josh. We decided to do it in release order. So we put the movie up, and I'm like,
the lazy
Anakin already has a scar. They've never explained this since decanonizing the Gandhi show.
Okay, let's move on to the next one, number 9. Oh, actually, well, first I'll ask the question. Okay, is that something we can move on from at some point? Do you think this whole expanded universe disregard is going to be moved on? I can already say I have partially moved on. Partially. Yeah. There are still some really great stories that we will never get reintroduced fully into the canon again.
Plagueis.
Yeah, Plagueis. I mean, like characters have slowly started to come back. I mean, even Dirge has come back in canon. But
see, that's the thing is since Dave Filoni's been slowly bringing this stuff back, it's put me, I think, at ease with a lot of my annoyances because a lot of the stuff that I valued the most has come back.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Good.
I trust that man.
So if we can't get the full stories back, at least we can get some elements.
Throw me some crumbs.
Throw me some breadcrumbs. Yeah. Thanks, Dave. Okay, number 9, humor tone. Mixed reactions to the humor in the newer films, with some finding it distracting or inconsistent with the tone of the original trilogy. This incorporates humor in the prequels, this humor in the sequels, in Solo, Rogue One. I mean, wherever the humor that never really connected with you is. What are some examples we can think of this? Jar Jar? I mean,
touch Jar Jar anymore. He's gold.
Jam Jar Boinks.
I don't have a problem with Jar Jar. I'm just kind of throwing it out there. But
I think the one that just sticks out to me is like the Poe humor in Last Jedi. It felt so weird.
It did.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
And all the Hux
that Poe humor was just weird.
It is not Star Wars at all.
That opening sequence with Hux over the intercom. Yeah. Bad. Just bad.
The worst part with Hux was when he's like, "You're the mole." Like,
I'm the spy.
I hated that. Just like just the way that came out was just weird. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
Somebody was really sleeping that day.
Yeah, it didn't really feel like Star Wars to me either.
I think a lot of the humor in Star Wars is more like physical comedy, right? To have like such dialogue driven comedy is
this
very
for
weird.
Luke too.
We're so used to the George Lucas slapstick. You know, like I can just imagine him in his viewing room when he watches, like the what's it thing, farts in Jar Jar's face, like what's that? And George like, it's like, man, like that cracks me up. Like thinking of like, George, you think this is funny? That's hilarious.
It's for kids. George is putting in there.
Yeah, but it's for the kids, I love it, and then you get the stuff with Poe Dameron. It's like, what the heck,
yeah, I agree with that. Like, I didn't actually pick up on it as a kid, but now rewatching like New Hope, when you see Han and Chewie are running down the Death Star corridor, just like screaming, and then running to the room full of all the stormtroopers, like, bah! They all just run the other way.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
right? And it's not because they're trying to be funny.
No, it's just that they got themselves in this situation.
And they're characters, right? I think it's the same kind of with how Yoda and Luke kind of integral, but there's a bit of like dialogue that's funny as well, but a lot of it's like, like Yoda losing his balance and falling over while he's trying to concentrate and trying to steal. He's trying to annoy Luke to kind of test his patience. And
a lot of that slapstick comes from a character that can speak with a character that can't. Like 3PO and R2 and Luke, Chewie and Han.
Chewie and 3PO. Like
Chewie and 3PO. Yeah. It's just always the combination of like one can talk, the other can't. The other's interpreting for the audience what they're saying based on their response. And it sort of like works out awkwardly and it becomes funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have these
Yeah.
funny characters that are like, okay, we need a laugh, bring in R2 or 3PO, like in the prequel movies and Attack of the Clones, right?
I don't know.
3PO's hand
Fly
getting put
casual.
on.
I thought that was pretty funny. Like 3PO's head being put on
On a droid.
Right? Was that funny or is that just
It was. I liked it.
were people annoyed by that?
I would know. I'm so confused.
I liked it when I was younger.
I gotta be honest. I was only a little annoyed by that because I'm like, wouldn't he? Isn't he able to control the body?
Yeah.
Like
Right.
because he was still sent out and he was marching, and right. He's like,
Yeah.
wouldn't he be like, holy crap, I'm going this way?
Yeah.
I think it's funny because it's ridiculous. I don't know if I like.
Well,
the
he
idea of
has
being
that one
canon.
line. He's like, "Die, Jedi, die."
Yeah, that's true.
What
See,
did
and
I say?
I think it's like that. It's a motif of you get the murderer's hand sewn on you instead of your own hand in a hospital, right? And then all of a sudden,
idle hand.
yeah, and then you can't stop the hand from
Yeah.
grabbing the knife and
The
trying to strangle.
Simpsons.
Or
It's the hair transplant. And
Yeah,
the wig
yeah.
makes a murder.
So it was in your face for sure.
Yeah.
I guess
I do like how they got his face off him, right? And I forget the Jedi's name, but he just force pushes him,
I think it's
gives a
Kit
little
Fisto.
smile.
Yeah.
Kid
See, that's
Fisto.
funny. I
Yeah.
like the smile.
The smile. I love how they brought that to the depiction in the Clone Wars character. It's like he's got the big the Jamaican accent. He's like always smiling all the time when he fights General Grievous. Kit Fisto. He's like, he's way too happy about this.
Oh, that's a good gripe, actually. Maybe it'll come up later, but the whole Palpatine duel.
Yeah, actually, yeah. If it doesn't come up, it will come up. It will come
Okay.
up. Okay, here's another one. Number 10. We're halfway through. Prequel dialogue. Criticisms of clunky dialogue in the prequel trilogy, particularly in The Phantom Menace. I'm surprised it didn't bring up the I don't like sand. But who has any examples of this?
Okay, what's your favorite line of terrible dialogue, Josh? Let's go around.
I mean, I don't
Is it the
mind.
sand?
I like the sand thing. At this point, it's sort of memeable. I never had a problem with it though.
See, that's the thing about the prequels is all the bad dialogue lines have become such memes that I feel like we've all grown
We've all grown accustomed to it,
that, and now we have like this fondness for them.
Yeah, they're like,
Yeah. I killed them. I killed them all, and not just the men, but the women
That's
and
your
the
favorite
children
line?
too. They're like animals, so I slaughtered them like animals. I hate them.
okay.
It's all to be back.
It's cool, buddy. It's cool. Calm down.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem. I don't have a problem with most of the prequel dialogue, but I can see why there would be complaints about it.
Oh, my bones are aching, Andy. The storm's coming.
Storm's coming.
It's
Better get inside.
Yeah, see, that one is so stupid. It's funny. Like, my bones are aching, Annie. Storm's coming.
That was that was just like ad lib. Her bones are actually aching. So she just said that. They just kept it in.
She just happened to call Jake Annie.
It just came so naturally. Doesn't he look like an Annie to you?
Oh, jeez. Okay, Kyle, Attack of the Clones is your favorite movie, but what is to you probably like the most awkward piece of dialogue in that movie?
Ooh, oh God. I would have to go with Annie. I'm thinking of like 5 or 6 things that have happened in that movie. Okay. I'm sorry, man. I can't put my finger on it, but there was this one thing that Annie said where, and it was to Padme.
Oh,
I
know.
I was sitting there and I was
know
like,
exactly what you're talking
this
about.
is dumb.
You're talking about the first time that he like reunites with her again, right?
Oh, that whole scene is awful.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and it was all awkward.
The one I was gonna do was where they're telling each. She says "I love you" to him or something, and then he just says he's like, "No, but it's because I'm so in love with you." And he just says the same thing back. Like, I was like, who wrote this? Like a nervous teenager?
That was the third one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's the Revenge of the Sith.
No, it's because I'm so in love with you.
Yeah, he's like shirtless. I was like, I think that's my favorite one.
It's so good. Though. It's so bad, but it's so good at the same time. It's just like nobody else would make a movie with that in there.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh, yeah. No, I Kyle, I think the one you're thinking of at the beginning of episode 2 is like when she says, Annie, my goodness, you've grown.
Oh yeah.
And then he's like, so have you, more beautiful, I mean.
Well, it's to me, because I rewatched
For a
that.
senator, I mean.
Yeah. I feel like he didn't know what to say because he was baffled. And he tried to correct it, but just made it worse.
Yeah, exactly. But it just came out super awkward, you know.
Yeah.
I think that's part of the joke, but you know, it's not great.
I've thought about her every day since we last met.
You know how creepy that sounds? Like, oh man.
Okay, Obi-Wan has some bad dialogue like jokes too.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's like, where's Padme? Oh, or you're like, you should be more like Padme. She seems to be getting on top of things. And she's like, okay.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Don't try it, Anakin. I have the high ground. I still don't know what that means.
It sounds like he's got such a stick up his butt all the time. Oh,
You have done that yourself.
Yeah,
so uncivilized. All right.
Only a Sith deals in absolutes.
I will do it.
Did I do that all the time?
All right, number 11, political elements. Some viewers were displeased with the political aspects introduced in the prequels. I fully disagree with this.
Yeah, me too.
I just think
me
that
too.
in order for this entire war to make sense, it's part of the motive of the villain, everything. I don't really know why people had a problem with it. I can see why they might have a problem with it when introducing it to their kid for the first time, because they just wouldn't understand it. That being said, if they're beyond the age of 7 or 8, it's not that far-fetched to just explain it to them. It's like, all right, well, if they can't understand it, just pause it. Just, do some explaining. It's like, okay, education time, I don't know when we learn about politics in this country, but I feel like it's not like...
That social studies is like grade 3 and 4, you start learning about it.
Yeah, like it's not that hard to explain, even if you have to sort of make some sort of... what do you call that? Like a comparison story.
It's not like it wasn't present in the original trilogy too, right? There's a lot of talk about the Senate being dissolved and stuff like that. So there's a little bit of lead up into it. But the reason we don't get that is because the political system had been dissolved. So there's not much
part
to
of the
talk
story.
about. Yeah.
There's that.
Plus, so maybe it was a little jarring for people to have to see that in the Phantom Menace.
I think part of what ruined the sequels for me, at least going into episode 7, was that there was no explanation for anything. It was like, okay, what is the relationship? Like, where did this First Order come from? What's the relationship between the the Resistance and the New Republic? Boom, there goes the New Republic. Now they're not on Coruscant anymore. Like, how did these people get the power? Yeah, like so many questions. It's like, okay, I get that there's supposed to be some questions. I hate how it was intentional that there was questions. And I feel like they were trying to do that because they were trying to capture the feeling and the essence of episode 4 where we didn't really know what happened before. But because this is the final trilogy, they shouldn't have done that. Like they should have just gone in with knowing that, okay, everyone watching this movie has seen 6 other movies that sort of give us reasons as to why this is happening. It's the sequels, not a mid-weekle like thing, I just like
standalone quill.
Standalone quill or whatever. Like I don't know. I mean, like it's like it was foolish. I think it was foolish to go in with such blindness for the audience, and I was like, you know what? That left even less room to explain things in the later 2 movies when they needed more room to breathe for other stories.
Right.
So I think that first movie, episode 7, was a huge problem for the later 2 because it just left so much in the dark. It's like, okay, you're leaving it to these other 2 directors to put that stuff in their movie. Like, no, like, nobody got time for that. It's like, you want to go in knowing stuff. All right. You only got 3 movies to tell this story. How are you going to do it? So I think that was a big issue.
I wish all the movies started with 20 minutes of discussions of blockades and trade routes.
Exactly.
I mean, they even barely had anything on the write-up on the way up. They were just like, yep, the First Order's live. Yep, this is this, and Snoke's there, and this is what's happening.
Yeah,
it's just like, oh, well, okay, I guess this is what's happening.
Star Wars is a political... I mean, you can't have wars without politics, right? Like,
exactly.
And it is a living, breathing universe, and it has to function in a certain way, and humans, we want to understand how things work, right? So it's natural to be like, what the heck is like missing from this sequel trilogy? Like, I need an explanation. And there's already this, in the original trilogy, it was the first of its kind, right? No one is like asking for something necessarily, because it's like, yeah.
Attack of the Clones had a lot of sort of politics in there as well, you know, in regards to explaining how the Clone Wars gets started, how that gets going. And, you know, without that, you know, what kind of movie do you have left?
Yeah.
And, I feel like this is something that just people need to move on from this. It's like, okay, I get that you don't like politics, but Star Wars is not about spaceships. And George has said this. Like, it's not about spaceships. So let's move on, people.
Why does George sound like Yoda?
He said that in the James Cameron interview, when James Cameron interviewed him about Star Wars, and yeah, it was a good interview. If you haven't seen it, you should definitely watch that. Okay, here's another one. Number 12, Jar Jar Binks. He gets his own category here, just because he's such a strong, divisive character. Strong dislike for the character Jar Jar Binks, seen by some as an annoying and unnecessary addition. I don't have a problem with this one, but I can see that a lot of people definitely did not like the character. And
I feel like it was like a linchpin problem for the prequels for a really long time.
It was like the staple reason why someone didn't like those movies. And it's like,
there's entire fan edits based around cutting him out of the movie.
Yeah. Like the sort of similar, not to the same degree thing came up with Rose Tico in the sequels. And it's like, okay.
Oh yeah.
I'm not fond of the character.
It's more her plot was.
I don't hate the movie because of her, you know? And I get that Jar Jar was like a big highlight of Phantom Menace, and you know that may be a reason why somebody might hate the movie with their guts. But you know, I don't know. I don't have a problem with it.
When it comes to Rose, I never had a problem with Rose at all. I never even saw her as, you know, a crappy character or anything. I just saw her as another character within the Star Wars universe.
Mm-hmm.
But Jar Jar.
You're not big on Jar Jar.
When he first opens his mouth, you're just like, oh man.
For sure.
Oh, they ruined it. You know,
it took me a long time. It took me a long
for
time
me,
to come around.
Yeah, you ever hear that comedian? You ever hear the comedian that goes, you know, Star Wars is racist? He goes, the bumbling idiot's basically a high Jamaican. You got the Trade Federation. Oh no, so we don't need, you know, like the Asian Trade Federation right there. Yeah. It's just But Jar Jar, no, I didn't like him. I didn't like him that much as a character. But when you see the Clone Wars, the cartoon show, you get way more into who he is and everything like that. And so I gained an appreciation for the character. But if I was to just sit down and watch the movie, I'd be like, that's a crappy character.
Yeah, I think that's probably a big part of it is it's now aged enough that people have this nostalgia for it.
Right.
If it was a new movie that came out, I think people would be just as upset, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And again, this has nothing to do with the actors, of course. I mean, like we all, Ahmed Best, I think, was very poorly mistreated by the fandom.
Yeah,
you know,
unfortunately.
and
I
terrible.
fully agree.
Yeah.
Dude, he was an actor that was excited as heck. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the day that, you know, he's going to get that script and be told, hey, you're going to play a character in Star Wars. You know, he told his family and everybody's happy and everything like that. And then the fans attack him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
dude,
terrible.
He's an actor. He was getting paid and happy to do that part for us. Yep. You know, if you're mad at anything, be mad at the guy that wrote the character, not the actor.
Yeah. Same thing happened to
drives me nuts
too, I think, didn't it?
Sorry, I'm passionate on that one.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter who these, like, well, you think if it was a different actor playing Jar Jar that it would be a huge success?
Yeah. Yeah,
exactly. You didn't even see his freaking face.
Yeah, like, it's the character that was written. Yeah,
and Ahmed has such a unique voice too. Like when you hear him talk in just a regular tone of voice, you can tell it's him, right?
That's cool.
And like, and like he talks like a normal guy, but it's just like the way he talks, you just kind of know that the tone of voice or something. Yeah. And when they brought him into The Mandalorian, I think we all flipped out, you know, like just cool. Because, you're right, Kyle. Like, you know, he had this dream of kind of being in Star Wars. He was probably told, oh, you're going to play this like motion capture role for the first time in cinema. You know, you're going to be pioneering this technology. You know, it's going to be a main character of the film. And he ends up playing this like dim-witted sort of fool and that everyone hated. And then he got a lot of hate over because of it. And it's just like, man, that sucks, but at the same time, like I was so happy, like when they brought him in to do this Jedi role, because like even though not many people connected with that character, at least they were able to kind of do him the favor of like getting that dream. You know, I think like everyone wants to be a Jedi in Star Wars. That is one of the
most pleasant things that has come out of Star Wars in recent years, is just including him in kind of like,
in like such a cool role. Like he's the Jedi who saved Grogu.
And that's that, man.
You know what? I actually made a TikTok about his comeback, and I think I got like, I don't know, about something like 10,000 views or something ridiculous on it like that. And I'll send it to you guys after so you guys can see it. But yeah, I was so happy when they brought him back, and I was so happy that he got that redemption. You know, I'm in Star Wars and I can be proud of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how can fans who don't like Jar Jar Binks move on from Jar Jar Binks? I mean,
watch the Clone Wars.
Watch the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
He's got some pretty funny episodes in Clone Wars, I must say. Like
he gets a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
I got over it by just embracing the meme of Jar Jar Binks, because I almost love loving Jar Jar because everyone hates him so much, and it like makes people like I don't know, like he's here. He's here to stay. He's gonna be around. Mm-hmm. You know, might as well just embrace him.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to number 13, and just a moment here. We've got Francis popping in the escape pod. Hello, Francis.
Hey guys, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
There we go.
Good. All right.
Not too bad.
You just missed your chance to explain your take on Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah. Hey, but we got another good one. Number 13. We're going down the list. Number 13 here is CGI overuse. Criticisms about the overuse of CGI in the prequel trilogy, with some feeling it distracted from the practical effects of the original films. How do we feel about this one? Because this is, this is divisive, right? I mean, like the Star Wars films have been sort of essential for pushing those boundaries forward. So, like, is it overuse if it's actually innovating?
Well, should we expand on this and say like what about the digital editions in
thank God,
like the original trilogies and stuff too, right? Like, because I think that's also a
right.
That's
go for it. Yeah, maybe you can elaborate on that.
No, I just wanted to make sure we were talking about it as well.
I think Kyle's got something to say on that.
Oh, yeah. For me, dude, I hated that in the originals when he came back and he's like, we're going to do this version. And then 5 years later, we're going to do this newer version. And I hated it. The singing, that the weird frog fish person, whatever the hell that was.
Jedi Rock.
Oh man.
Size noodles.
Just keep the song the same. Yeah. We all love it. We all know it. It's the Cantina song.
I want the spittle to fly in their faces.
That.
I want some sort of fuzzy bug creature with a big butt on his face and his teeth right in the camera.
Yeah.
See the slobber.
Well, I mean, so yeah, like that I don't think that's ever connected with people, but that is a good one to point out, is like, you know, to combine in here with the CGI overuse. A lot of those additional scenes thrown into the original trilogy were just full CG scenes, and they do not hold up very well. So like they were kind of it was almost like a gimmick. Like it almost felt like a gimmick, like re-release the movie with some in-betweener sort of.
Well, here's the thing. I think
because this poor sap's gonna watch it.
Yeah.
This is my theory. I think they were kind of testing the waters with CG capabilities before the prequels came out. Yeah. And on top of that, it allowed them to re-release the films to get the IP fresh in everyone's minds before the prequels come out.
Yes, for sure.
So I think it's a bit of that. The fact that we can't get the original non-CG versions is a pretty big gripe of mine.
You can if you get a Laserdisc player.
Yeah, you can't get like full, 4K or whatever.
Right.
There's some effects in
scenes.
Pardon?
Sorry.
Oh.
He must be on Geonosis for losing
the
him.
additional scenes from what I've read. What I've read is that Lucas originally wanted those scenes to be in, but he didn't have the technology available at the time to have those things in. So when it came up, he jumped the gun immediately to get those and cram them in because he had these fantastical dreams to add into Star Wars, but yeah, just technology just wasn't there.
His dream was to have a giant dewback in front of the camera blocking the stormtroopers.
There are certain.
That's just what I saw from an interview. I don't know what his. God knows what he dreams about. That man's a mystery.
Good, go for it, Bryce.
There are certain effects that that are kind of successful that I forget weren't a part of the original.
Right.
Like run, like the little beak in the Sarlacc pit.
Yeah. No,
right?
that was a great addition.
And I don't know if
fair, yeah.
I don't know if other people watch it and they're just like. They see that, and every time they're like, why is that there? But like some stuff just goes right over my head. Like
Ewoks blinking.
Ewoks blinking. the dewbacks and the sand troopers in the background of the
but the Death Star explosion. Yeah, it was different as well.
Yeah, they added the ring and a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sure there's some stuff I'm forgetting about even now that you know, it was more successful.
Yeah, it's definitely hit or miss with the people, I find.
It is, yeah, because certain things I feel like now are dated, but they definitely do help. Like, for example, when the speeder with Luke and R2 and 3PO and Obi-Wan is going into Mos Eisley.
Yeah.
I think that really helps set the place well.
Yeah.
So the original, they just cut to them being there.
Right.
Which is, you miss it, even though when you watch it, it feels very CG.
And in the prequels, you do get those very environmental sort of transition scenes. Establishing shots. Yeah. And so like for that reason alone, like they're sometimes quite handy and useful and good for the story. And I can see why, George would have said those things. Like what Francis was saying, like, I do recall the interview that he did say that in, where he said like, it was only like 90 something % complete in his head. And there were still a few things that he wanted that couldn't have been done at the time. So like, it's definitely sort of, it's cool that he was able to kind of get the movie he wanted, I guess, eventually. My problem with them is that they just don't really hold up that very well. Like we're talking beyond 20 years ago, because these CG scenes were kind of done prior to Phantom Menace. And if you think that the Phantom Menace doesn't hold up, these are even worse. So like, that's my issue with them. I feel like if they re-rendered them all in today's technology, today's, standard of visual effects, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I don't really care for the original cut or edit if the director and the creator himself doesn't like that version, right? Like I want to see the movie that the guy who made it wants me to see. Because if I showed anyone an incomplete painting that I did, and they loved it the way it was, but I hadn't finished it yet, it would kind of put a rock in my gut to be like, oh, well, I still wanted to add more to that. And
have you ever read the book 1984?
I have. It was bad.
What? That was a great book. Anyway, in that they constantly
That was a fantastic book.
Constantly change history, so everyone has to relearn history all the time, pretend like it never happened. That's kind of how I feel a little bit about this as an explanation.
Josh thought it was so bad he burned the book.
That's a whole different book.
I rewrote history and I never read it.
What is that? Fahrenheit something or other?
No, I'm sure it was a great book. I had to read it for English class at one point in my life, and no book that I was forced to read was good in my head.
Dude, I had to read a book about pearl diving. You were lucky to read 1984.
I also had to read Animal Farm, and that also was
good books.
That's a great book.
Man, Lord of the Flies.
Yeah,
great book.
Yeah, these are great.
Screw you guys.
Lord of the Flies was great.
No aliens.
Here's another one.
This is a whole different hot take.
All right, moving on. Okay, over CGI overuse. Can we move on from it?
Well, is it obviously not going to stop now?
It's not going to stop. No, I think we can move on from it. I mean, like nowadays, people don't even notice what's CGI and what's real.
Practical overuse.
So this is the one part of this whole thing that I think, that could be an issue. Is I have actually made some points, when watching Mandalorian and Book of Boba, where CGI would have been better than using practical, and Ahsoka was the most recent.
Clone Troopers.
Yes, the live action Clone Troopers mixed in with background clone CGI versions, but the close to camera ones were practical, and you could totally tell. and those ones sucked. Like they were really, really bad. And apparently the costumes were based on the prototype for the Clone Trooper, which when they did the 3D model of the Clone Trooper in Attack of the Clones, they were based on a prototype physical costume that they made, which was kind of not that great. And I was like, why would they do that? You know, like, why not just make them all CG? I get that. I get like people like the practical thing. Maybe it cut down on the budget. I love the clean sort of feeling that the CG clones have that we've grown accustomed to seeing, you know, and especially with today's technology, like, it could have been done really well. You know, give them the spotlight. You know, it's like, why does it have to be replaced with the practical ones? They look like they're losing their flappy armor pieces off their shoulders, and I don't know, the helmet's too big and chest is too wide, and it just didn't really look good. So yeah, practical overuse, definitely an issue. Who else can think of an example? Cad Bane? Anyone?
I think we've talked about this before, but
one.
like, Disney's afraid of using CG now because of the prequels, and they're leaning way too much into practical. Because, like, yeah, Cad Bane, but the Grand Inquisitor looks.
Well,
I could.
Yeah,
that could have been practical.
Yeah, that's the thing is
they just cheapened out on the practical.
They didn't match what they already had done practically in the prequels.
Yeah, that was my problem with that too. Yeah. Oh man, so many issues with that. So I think they just gotta.
I can't tell who looks more like Squidward.
They just gotta work.
I can't tell who
their
looks
stuff
more like
out.
Squidward, either the Grand Inquisitor or Cad Bane. Good God.
There's a time and a place for CG. There's a time and a place for practical. And, I feel like all of the gripes that we all have as to whatever it is, I feel like eventually we'll all move on. That being said, some of these things, Ahsoka, Book of Boba, they're all very recent to my head. So it's going to take me a while personally to move on from, bad-looking Inquisitors, Cad Banes, and Clone Troopers. But, speeder bike. Yeah, the moped things. Yeah.
Sometimes when Grogu's walking.
Oh,
just like hopping along the ground, like kind of floating, and just looks like he's being
so wiggly.
Yeah. I'm just like, okay, well, I don't know.
What if it was just bad CG? Think about that.
Then that's a very talented animator who's animating it to look like a terrible puppeteer.
It's actually impressive.
That would take some work. Yeah,
they did a good job to make it look so bad.
Yeah, the Muppets should hire this guy.
Here's number 14. Number 14 is, I don't want to call this semi-repeat, but it is its own point. Lack of originality. Complaints about lack of originality in the sequel trilogy's plot, drawing parallels to the original trilogy. We already touched up on this as a complaint that we had about those movies in the first place in the first note. But is there any examples from perhaps not the sequel trilogy that we can think of that are lack of originality? Anything? I mean, we can call things parallels. Like when Anakin blows up the Trade Federation starship is very similar to how the Death Star blows up. But, what's not original? No. Anyone
I'd say like sometimes the creatures, like I've seen a big tentacle creature like just running around trying to eat. It's in every movie ever.
Yeah,
that thing was so unoriginal. Like in
Rathtars.
Yeah, the Rathtar.
That's a sequel.
That is in the sequel, but it's not something we've mentioned yet.
Good example.
I will say, just in general, monsters, it's tough because it's a trope in Star Wars, but it also to me comes up so often that it just feels like, oh, we're doing this again. So I'm not against monsters, but I'd like it to be done in a fresh way.
Mm.
Here's one thing. What about every time? Okay, when they messed up in the originals and they used parsec for a distance of speed, and then they corrected it when they did Solo.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look through all of the movies and stuff, they always still said, "Oh, he got there in that many parsecs." So everything that they all said now kind of like, okay, so they just did it in a shorter distance of space. It's not how fast that they had been able to do it.
I think it's actually the fans I think it's actually the fans who sort of misinterpreted the meaning of that, because back when those movies first came out, the established lore of hyperspace lanes and how ships can go from point A to point B was not really there yet. And once they sort of got that out there, and it was like, oh, you know, to get to Kessel, you have to go through this nebula in a very specific way in order to get there and back. Like, now it kind of makes sense that they would use the Falcon made the Kessel run away 12 parsecs. It's like, oh, okay, now that kind of brings meaning to that sentence. So I think a lot of like the inconsistencies with that sort of thing has definitely come from sort of just people talking. It's like, oh, you know, it's like, you know, just the fandom. It's like misinterpreting, I guess. Yeah. But yeah,
okay, yeah, no, I get you on that.
That's just my take on it. But I don't know. I mean, yeah, I can't really think of any other examples.
I'd say one thing that might be a lack of originality might be like force powers used by Jedi and Sith. And a lot of recent stuff, like they all just use the exact same thing of force push, force lift, force this. But there's a lot of different things that the Jedi and the Sith are able to do, like even just in the games or in extended continuities, or just even like in the prequels. Like if anyone remembers when Obi-Wan and Anakin straight up just force dashed off the screen. Why doesn't anyone use that?
Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, yeah. That actually, you've kicked us off into our next point on the list, number 15, which is inconsistencies in the Force. Discontent with perceived inconsistencies in how the Force is portrayed and utilized across different trilogies. So yeah, thank you, Francis. That's a very good one to point out. Force speed. I feel like a number of video games and books have sort of implemented this effect, not in the films. And that is sort of a crime, you know. I feel like it was a really cool,
and it feels so natural for a Jedi with enhanced abilities.
Yeah,
it should be one of the easier powers. We see them like do acrobatics and stuff, but they never. I guess you could argue the way they fight in the prequels could maybe be considered somewhat in line with that.
Yeah,
but they never straight up run faster than everyone else.
Right. But like you've read,
mine is anytime. Sorry.
Oh, go for it, Cal.
I was gonna say mine is anytime they're free falling. Anytime they're, because I'm a skydiver, okay, and anytime they're free falling, I'm going. You guys have the Force, right? You could literally, you could free fall, but you'd be able to move like when I'm free falling without any help or anything. Like I can move in a one by one direction, so 1 foot down, 1 foot over. So if I move 1,000 feet down, I can fly 1,000 feet over. But that's just me just moving my hands around with the air. Like, this is a freaking Jedi falling out of the sky, and this guy's going straight down and has to hope, you know, Annie, come and freaking get me. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I never got that. I was like, you could basically make yourself do like a 1 to 10 ratio or something. You know, who knows?
Yeah,
that's something they should do.
What about?
That's what they should do.
Things like since while we're on this Force-related topic, I mean, you know, the whole debate comes up of like, okay, how easy is it to obtain abilities like this? I mean, you know, we recently saw Sabine go in like, you know, in no time, sort of 0 to 100 with being able to throw Ezra Bridger onto the big Star Destroyer. It's like, okay, there's a number of ways that you can kind of like think of like fandom style reasons for making it make sense. But I think sort of to the casual viewer, you know, it might not make a lot of sense in the continuity of things, right? I don't know.
Yeah, okay. I don't like how Jedi, like a lot of this is a gripe I've had. I don't like how a lot of the Jedi have trained since a youngling, right?
Yeah.
And then their powers seem to be kind of lacking towards somebody that, oh, dude, I've been doing this for a week. Look what I can do. Buzz, right? Like, you know. Like I don't get it. That part I don't get. It's how can that happen?
Yeah,
it's a tricky thing when they want to fit it all into one show or movie, I guess. But it does make it very inconsistent.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, there's offhanded lines like how Sabine had been training and was never able to do it, but the fact that she went from 0 to 100 when she was able to get any sort of ability.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Yeah.
It's like, is this something we can move on from?
I mean,
Can it be forgiven? Can it be
it's something we're
glossed
gonna have
over?
to.
Yeah,
It could be glossed over in the lore at some point.
In my heart, no.
You know what? I'll forgive it because there are children prodigies. You know what I mean? So maybe every once in a while
They all get
we'll
caught
have
on film.
a ray.
Yeah.
I think before Luke disappeared to Octo, he left a long recording, just one of those like master class videos on how to be a Jedi, right?
Yeah.
If you subscribe to it, he'll teach you how to do it in 10 easy steps.
My name is Luke Skywalker. Have you ever wanted to be a Jedi?
Yeah.
In this masterclass, I will teach you exactly how to go from point A to point B with the Force.
Yeah.
The first thing you need to do is get a cup of noodles.
First things first, just chop that hand right off. Get that out of there. You only need one.
I can't believe you, dude.
Sure,
You
do
must
this
have the
one-handed.
Force, dude. I literally just made a cup of noodles.
Oh wow! I was doing a throwback to the old
You have
Luke
friends?
Skywalker novel.
Number 16, handling of Snoke. Some fans were disappointed with how the character of Supreme Leader Snoke was handled in the sequel trilogy, and we actually recently talked about this a number of times in our recent episodes when we were talking about the possibilities of Alan Dean Foster's episode 9 and Colin Trevorrow's episode 9. And I know, Bryce, you're a big fan of Alan Dean Foster's 50 different Snokes, didn't you? Wasn't it you were like kind of like the idea of like tons of Snokes?
Just millions of Snokes being killed by Luke.
Yeah.
Seeing your hero just slay.
Kill as many of my clones as you want.
Luke's just getting tired. Like, oh my gosh.
I've killed so many, but there's just so many more. Being overrun with clones.
I thought it was pretty entertaining.
Did you like how Snoke was handled in episode 8?
I didn't care how he died, but I cared how he just was there. Like that part I didn't like. Like, you know, the Empire's gone, everything's gone, and all of a sudden there's just this new Sith that just owns everything already.
Yeah.
You know,
but it was made by Palpatine. They explained that.
I was confused in episode 7 as well. Like when I first saw Snoke for the first time, he's the guy in charge. He's the guy that somehow manipulated Ben Solo. Like, who is this guy?
That's why we all said it was Plagueis.
Yeah. We all thought it was him.
It would have made a lot of sense for it to be
Yeah,
him.
that would have been way better.
Can we move on
from that? Probably not.
Plagueis? Dude, that would have actually been cool and interesting.
Here's the one thing about, okay, despite the context of that character, I was surprised, you know, when they killed him off in the theater. And I think, and I liked that I was surprised.
Me too.
Because nothing about those movies was surprising until that moment. And I was like, oh shoot. Okay, well, now what, right? And I was like, this is kind of making me happy.
And you know why that happened? Because Rian Johnson didn't have to write the next movie. It's
like,
my problem.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Because then after that, you're probably also like, oh, nice, that was surprising and will probably be significant and relevant.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, you know, that aside though, like, you know, the whole handling of the character prior to his death, and well, even after, I mean, you know, how do you feel like it was a positive sort of spin that he was just like a creation and a Force proxy of Palpatine? Just, you know, whether it was Palpatine or not, it could have been anybody. But do you like the fact that he was just this like organic creation that was basically just being puppeted through the Force?
I think it's kind of cool, but even like he did and still does need more backstory. Like, we need more to make him cool, right? Like why does he look the way he looks?
That's
like,
because
Obi-Wan based off.
Obi-Wan pushed him in that vat of acid.
Yeah.
How does he bounce Force lightning off the ground?
Like I still think he's kind of cool, and I still think they could do something with him. And like,
he could have been way better.
I would say my biggest gripe is that he wasn't actually 50 feet tall, like in the Force Awakens.
Yeah, that was a stupid hologram sort of Wizard of Oz.
That would be cool though, right?
Jinx.
If he was like a evil Bendu or something.
Yeah,
that'd be cool. I'm pitching that now.
That would have been kind of neat. Yeah.
Well, I think they're going to explain. I think they're going to come into more of an explanation on him through the Mandalorian.
Yeah, maybe.
Because that's what Moff Gideon was talking about in that little, you know, council of shadows sort of thing.
I was pretty excited when that came out.
So I think they're going to come out with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I think this is something that we will move on with.
Doesn't fill it out, I think.
Yeah, as more stories come out, for sure, I think Snoke will be rectified. Yeah.
And then you know what's going to happen? We're all going to go back. We're all going to watch episode 7 and be like, oh, it's freaking amazing now.
Yeah.
The Jedi text.
How many more years till it's 10 years old?
Yeah.
The sacred texts.
Francis, what were you saying, Francis?
Snoke is like getting a package from Wish.com, where you log it on the website and it's like, wow, this is gonna be great. And then you're waiting for the package, and then it arrives, and you open it, and it's like 5 times smaller than you thought, and it's like, wow.
That's a nice rug.
False advertising.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, this might be something people can move on.
It'll be a nice carpet for my desk.
Yeah. Number 17, we got Solo, a Star Wars story reception. Mixed reviews for Solo with some feeling it was unnecessary and didn't capture the essence of the character.
I enjoyed the movie.
I enjoyed the movie too. I didn't mind
I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of too bad that it got mixed reception, because within the first 2 minutes of the movie, that guy sold me on the character.
Yeah, and that was probably our biggest concern going into it.
Yeah.
It was the casting, because we really wanted that guy
other
who
guy.
looked just like the young Han Solo.
The one who played young Harrison Ford in Age of Adeline, right?
That's right. Yeah. What's his name?
I forget his name, but now thanks to not being in Solo, he's a nameless schmuck.
we just know him as Solo, young Solo.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that movie. Solo. I thought it was great. The storyline was freaking awesome. I like Woody Harrelson's character in it. I like how they showed that war. You know,
when he was an Imperial.
What were we gonna say?
As a soldier.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
me too. Yeah, there's very little in that movie I think I disliked. Like I enjoyed it pretty well across the board. That was one of the better movies that's come out.
I only just disliked that they left it on such a cliffhanger and didn't resolve any of that. Like we had to wait for comic books to resolve all of that plotline stuff, and that's like I don't want to. I mean, I like reading the comic books. I don't want to have to watch a movie to then read the comic book to figure out. Like I feel like they were naturally leading towards a sequel for that movie, and it just didn't happen.
And you know what? That movie got comedy right with Han Solo kind of accidentally doing gaffes, like the car getting stuck.
Yeah.
Like it was very natural
I was gonna say
comedy.
the comedy was on.
Yeah, I feel like the comedy was there too. Yeah, it was. And Ron Howard, fixed that movie up a lot. Like, because the other guys got let go, and he came in and he did a great job. Like whatever he ended up doing, like it's like, hey, I mean, it would have been probably really bad, and now it ended up being great. So I mean, and it's funny. Like George said at one point, like, oh well, he's when they were looking at doing episode 7, like you're the guy who told them to do it in the first place.
Ron Howard.
Yeah, Ron Howard was his first pick.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, Ron Howard was
they're old friends.
Yeah, because he started American Graffiti. Back in the day when George.
Well, there's
Star Wars.
There's pictures of Bryce Dallas Howard as a young kid on the set of Phantom Menace, like standing next to practical like battle droids, B-1 battle droids, just looking up at them and stuff. Yeah, it's
and Ron Howard also did Willow.
Yeah,
with George Lucas.
Yeah, that's right. So he's a Lucasfilm sort of
alumni.
Yeah.
He's got his own room at the ranch.
Yeah,
his own key.
He can go there whenever he wants. Should people move on from Solo? Oh, Bryce, maybe you haven't spoken about this one.
I think they should, because I moved on. Like I did not. I really didn't like it for some reason. And
really?
I can't really even think about why I necessarily didn't like it. I think I was hung up on the actor and comparing it to Harrison Ford. And just like the general like direction they went with Maul at the end. I'm like, this doesn't really make sense for new people watching it. They're gonna be so friggin' lost. Right? Like,
true. Okay. I'll give you that one.
And I just generally, I think I wanted a different movie. Like, I'm like, I don't really want another movie about a pre-existing character. Like Star Wars is such a big galaxy. Why are we making another movie about someone we already know?
I agree.
When it could be a new character, right? Yeah. That we don't have any attachments to, and we don't have to judge it based on our previous knowledge of other things or compare it to things. So, but no, I actually think I got over this. Yeah. So I think other people can too.
Sweet. Awesome.
Maybe this therapy will help everyone.
Yeah, there you go.
We'll watch it together, buddy. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bryce.
Yeah, call in.
All right, number 18, lightsaber battles. Opinions vary on lightsaber battles, with some feeling the prequels' choreography was too flashy, while others wanted more intense fights in the sequels. And this, I'll bring it, because you brought it up earlier, I'm going to bring it up again. Blake, you brought up the Palpatine fight and how incredibly rushed it was, how terrible the choreography was the day of filming when George all of a sudden last minute decided he wanted Ian instead of his stunt double to do all the fights. And that's, I believe, one of the reasons why all of a sudden it just kind of went shot, the whole thing.
Yeah, I could see that. Because I would say across all of the films and series, that's probably the worst fight.
Yeah.
Especially considering it's supposed to
be.
He
offs 3 Jedi Masters in like the first 5 seconds of the duel. Yeah, it's like, there's no way, dude.
They're so incompetent.
There's no way.
they just more look like
his little
fools.
Corkscrew flying through the air thing.
That's the best part.
Okay, that's the best part. But the dude looking at the wall. The dude looking at the wall. I mean, give me a break. What's he looking at? What's he looking at? That's so interesting. Is that vase really more important than what's going on right now?
That's pretty nice. I've never noticed that before.
He's like, oh my gosh, it's an ancient inscription on how to defeat Palpatine. And then he's
Can you imagine? It's like for the first time, before he whips out the lightsaber, holding Mace Windu's muffled voice in the background, in his head, it's just silence. And he's looking at the vase, going like, "Hang on, that's a Sith relic. Wait a minute, what is that doing there?" And then he looks to his left, just sees a flash of red, and he's dead.
Yeah, there's a cut of Mace Windu being like, "All right, I'll hold them off. You guys study the pottery." Well,
you guys look for clues in the room while
split up. You got it, Mace.
Meanwhile, we all need to stand in a line and look awesome.
You don't have to stand for long.
Please, Mace. I didn't find any clues.
Zoinks, Mace.
Oh man, I had a problem with that a lot. I think that is probably one of the worst duels of the entire saga.
I don't think I could think of one that's worse.
I do love his Palpatine's got some moves. They pulled off some cool flips that he does.
Yeah.
He does this backflip over the thing, in the middle of the room, and that was cool.
But you could argue that
there's some cool stuff in the fight. There's some cool stuff in the fight. It's just the beginning is so bad that it almost just drags down the rest of it.
Yeah,
right?
I think that is the
And I also don't like how there were so many close-up shots in that fight. I think like swords fights are the best when the camera's pulled out and you can see the amazing choreography. See the actual fight. Yeah, you see the actual fight. Yeah. Right. I think Kyle, you brought this up at one point. We were talking about lightsaber duels at one point on the Ahsoka show. How it's it's just a bit cheap. It feels a bit cheap when they just zoom in and it's just you can just see the face. It's you don't see the choreography.
The worst one for the zooming in is got to be Revenge of the Sith, and it's the Mustafar fight, and because they do have a lot of good shots in that. But if you notice, there's every once in a while, it's just this close up of the face, and then a blue lightsaber in front of the face, back across the face, and they did that a few times back and forth, and I'm just like, that doesn't choreographically fit with what they're doing.
Yeah, and Anakin's Dooku duel in Attack of the Clones is the same thing. When he kills the lights, and it's just it's just you just see their face and flashes of red and blue. For a good solid 10 seconds.
Have you seen what that fight was supposed to look like? Have you seen what that fight was supposed to look like?
Are you talking about episode 3, Count Dooku Anakin duel? Because I've seen that one where they released some footage. It would have been so much better. Yeah,
the deleted scene.
Yeah,
way better.
It's a fight that they'd practiced out, and oh man, so much better.
Yeah. Dude, they're jumping off of stuff, flipping around, man. Float, doing the Palpatine twist through the air and everything. Dude, it was way better.
Yeah, it would have been good.
Yeah.
Is this something we can move on from? Lightsaber battles that are bad. I think it's an easy one we can move on from. I don't think it's things that we'll forget easily. I don't. You'll notice every time I don't resent. Yeah, I don't resent the movie for it or anything. But it's just it irks me though. That it's oh man, that could have been better. But oh well.
Yeah.
At this point, it's just oh well.
While we're in this scene though, I know Revenge of the Sith first came out, I went to it for, I don't know, like my 12th birthday or something. And it's the scene where Mace has specifically kicked.
Where did he kick him?
He has kicked Palpatine in the head and knocked him.
Did you look this up after our?
This was a trivia question we got.
Yeah.
And we had to guess like 4 times.
It took a long time to get it.
Is it in the head?
Yeah, it's in the head for sure. That's
okay.
Right. Anyway, in that scene when he reflects the lightning, and that's how we see how Palpatine gets all old, like looks all haggard.
Yeah.
My buddy turns to me and he's laughing and he goes, "He's got a big butt on his head." And now I can not see the giant butt on Palpatine's head from then on, from the lightning.
Oh, thanks. Now you've ruined it for me too. I'm just kidding. I always knew about the butt.
As someone that like has choreographed some fighting before and has done like sword fighting, a lot of them are. The point is to be flashy with the lightsabers, but I feel like a lot of them, like with the fight on Mustafar, they're not really aiming for each other for a lot of it. Like with sword fighting, you're not supposed to actually like aim for the body or aim for like the proper target, but it looks like they're kind of just aiming for each other's sabers more than anything. Which
yeah.
As good as the Mustafar fight was, I feel like that kind of feel has kind of carried over to a lot of the fights even now, where they're more aiming for each other's swords rather than actually trying to chop off each other's limbs or finish the fight.
Well, that's probably just cinema in general, wouldn't it be?
It's a big thing with cinema.
One of the things, like I think I mentioned this.
It's like with that powerful of a weapon, finish the fight.
Yeah. With Ahsoka, is one of the things I really liked about it, and why I'm not too worried about like, can I let this go? It's like, yeah, I can, because I think we're slowly getting some better lightsaber fights again, like in the stuff being released. Ahsoka had some bad ones at the end.
Yeah.
But the first ones that happened between in the forest, and also between Ahsoka and dang it, I forgot his name, Balin.
Yeah.
Those ones felt good again. They felt, and like you were saying, it felt like they were trying to kill each other.
Yeah.
Right. And the lightsabers, they felt a bit more dangerous again. Okay, like they were afraid of being hit by them. Right.
Right.
And I think that's why it gives me hope, and why I can like let this go. Because I hope that they're kind of learning from, like you were saying, mistakes, just kind of the silly, like flashy stuff.
Spinning around. Yeah.
We'll move on to the next one. Number 19, diversity representation. While some appreciate the increased diversity, others criticize it as forced pandering.
What do you mean that people are talking like that? I'm sorry, man.
Watto?
Is that you, Watto?
I mean, okay. I think I could speak for everyone. It's like, we don't have a problem with diversity. It's something that has to be acknowledged. Like, it's definitely out there. It's out there as a general gripe that some people may have, and
I can move on from it. Diversity is good.
Yeah, I mean it is, for sure. And I think like the main thing being like, is it? Here's the main thing. I don't think it's ever been a problem in Star Wars, right? I don't think it's ever been an issue.
I don't think so either. I think
we're lucky not to have
too many bloody humans.
Yeah,
I feel like the gender imbalance
of all mediums, Star Wars is not it. Like, Star Wars isn't the big problem.
As someone
Hollywood,
as someone that was just a massive Star Wars nerd growing up in my teens, maybe would have been nice to have more women in Star Wars, so I wouldn't have been so lonely. Maybe it would have been nice to have more female fans.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, Bryce, I remember when Jedi Fallen Order came out. You were pretty psyched. It was like the first ginger Jedi.
Finally, some representation.
Yeah, I mean, Star Wars is just such a great like theme and universe that you can just do whatever. And so everything should be welcome and included.
Yeah. Humans are humans, aliens are aliens, and there's so many billions of different creatures out there in the galaxy of Star Wars. Like, diversity takes on a whole different meaning at that point. Right?
I think it's important.
We're just one planet.
Yeah.
Right? We're just one planet, and look at the diversity we have. This is an entire freaking galaxy.
Our petty problems here on Earth, meanwhile, you know.
Yeah, I mean, you want to get into trade routes.
Yeah.
I think it's important to see people like you in that you want to, you know, that you look up to in your movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I think all of us are white dudes. I don't know if I'm right. So I think it's really important. It's probably,
I'm Asian.
Yeah, I was gonna say Francis is Asian.
Okay,
Francis, we never met you in person before. So.
One day you will.
How do you feel about Nemoidians and Lucas's choice of I don't know, let's say
choice of accent?
Actors,
yeah.
That's what I was talking about earlier with the,
do you have any thoughts on
the
that?
comedian.
Oh, okay. Aliens are aliens. If you want to choose your inspiration from different places in the world that are familiar, then I'd say go for it. Because, I mean, as an Asian guy, we don't really see much of us, like, on, like, old Hollywood. I can't swear. I think it's weird.
That's fair.
But, yeah, I mean, the whole diversity thing, I think the right actors will find the right roles. I don't think Star Wars is a problem series for that. And when there are, like, weird situations like that, it's a whole galaxy. Who's to say what's out there?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, very fair.
Yep.
Cool. All right, number 20, this is our last one. Retroactive changes. Criticisms about retroactive changes made to the original trilogy content, such as special editions released by George Lucas. We actually already touched up on this. Retroactive changes I would throw in there that we haven't touched up on, though, that we may have brought on as a subject on the podcast before, though.
Lando getting kicked in the nuts.
I mean, yeah, okay. For those of you who listen to Rebels talk, Disney Plus changed the Star Wars Rebels episode where Lando made some weird sounds at one point. But here, okay, so there's this one sort of elephant in the room. Palpatine, you know, he was never supposed to come back, and after Colin Trevorrow exited Lucasfilm over Episode 9, I mean, you know, that was sort of a last minute change. Like, hey, let's throw Palpatine in the movie and just kind of make it all his plan again. And it's like, okay, I'm not a big fan of that. I don't know.
That was horrible writing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're on the same page with this.
Yeah, that was horrible writing.
That's terrible.
I feel like it's like that kind of thing. It's like, it's just lazy. It's like lazy writing, lazy filmmaking, you know, trying to just, people like this film. Let's just use him, you know?
I think the reason why they probably did that was because of all of the backlash that they got for the first two from all of the older community. And they were like, shit or crap, if we just throw in Palpatine, they'll be like, yeah, what we got to do is make us laugh. And then when you hear us laugh in the commercial, every single person that I know went,
yeah, I was a bit unsure as well. Yeah. I was like, what? You kidding me? Oh man.
I would, for me, I'm not opposed to him coming back. It's just, I can't help but think, because they didn't plan out all three films, it just felt like we don't know what else to do.
Yeah. Well, that's the last one. Can we move on from things like retroactive changes? I think retroactive changes can always be like smoothed over later with additional story content. And then it sort of helps it make sense. But there you have it.
Plot hole fillers.
Yeah. Then it helps. I'm not saying it's perfect, but you know, sort of smooths over the rough side of the retroactivity. That is the last one there. So that's our list. Does anyone have any last minute things that we may not have touched up on through this entire endeavor?
Say it now. You have to wait another 10 years till the next
right.
episode.
Yeah. Say it now or forever.
Gotta get it all out.
All right.
I'd say a good point with the retroactive changes and additions, like how all of the ships in the original trilogy have been explained throughout like prequel material and Rebels and Clone Wars, like where they got the B wings, where they got the A wings, where they got the Y wings, and all those. I think those are really cool additions and cool lore elaborations that they did.
Yeah.
I want to bring up, how is anybody supposed to say no to Padme when she's wearing that black leather thing? Like, dude, come on, dude. For 3 movies, all of us were like ogling over her. And then you see her like that, and she's like, I don't think we can be together. And you're just like, girl, I'll do whatever it takes now. I'll take light side, dark side. What do you need?
Did you see the robot chicken on that one?
Robot chicken.
I've seen a few, but like a bunch of memes. Out Jedi Council is just like, yeah, let's send him. Let's send him to go guard this lady.
Yeah.
The robot chicken one is hilarious because, like, you know, Padme's in that dress, like you were saying, right? And then Anakin goes through his whole speech, and meanwhile, she's just like stripping and like going on a pole and, you know, like washing R2D2 and like her pants come down or rip or whatever. Like there's like crazy stuff in that sequence. Meanwhile, he has to just carry on, right? Yeah. And he's like sweating and, you know, like he's like, oh man, it's hilarious. It's a pretty good one.
That would be any one of us.
Any male on Earth.
They'll come out with
Anakin, what are we gonna do? We can't be together anymore. Rips off shirt. Our love is forbidden. We can't do this. We can't see each other anymore. Rips off the bra. But Anakin, we can't. Don't look at me. Don't look at me with those eyes. Anakin, don't.
They'll make a.
We have to be purely friends. No love.
They'll make a new digital correction where there's just like a hoodie on Padme during that
sweater.
Scene. Yeah, she's just got like a it says like University of Naboo on it.
Wearing a poncho. Yeah.
Oh man. Oh yeah, Kyle. Before we
wrap, it just says Queen. It just says Queen.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say what the heck was I? I just forgot what I was gonna say. Don't worry about it.
All good. I got one question for you before we wrap up. Where are you guys heading next? What's the next convention, and what are the new lightsabers you got coming in?
Okay, so well, actually, first I was just gonna say this. Actually, Alex actually has a Padme cosplay. That's what I was gonna say.
Oh man!
So I haven't seen her in it yet, but I don't think I'll light dark side whatever she wants. Man.
Don't take her walking down the downtown east side.
Definitely no, man.
Too many evil Anakins down there.
We're off to next.
All right, yeah. Where are you guys going next, and what kind of sabers are coming in?
So next we've got the new Ezra from Ahsoka. That's now available, and we are going to be in Portland, Oregon on our first trip, and that's going to be in January.
Awesome.
So that's where we're starting off. We're going to start there, and then we're Vancouver, so we're right here, home base. Anybody come on down, you can check us out. We'll be at the Vancouver Fan Expo, and come on down and see us and check our stuff out because. Even Giancarlo, he's going to be there, and actually, you can even go up if you get a Darksaber from us. You can have him sign the blade for you. There you go.
Amazing, sweet. Who wouldn't want that? I mean, sweet blade. All right, guys. Thank you all for coming on the show again, and we will catch you all in another episode.
Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, indeed.
Always happy.
We'll see you out there. Keep flying.
All right. Thank you so much for all of you guys tuning in at home. We really appreciate it. And we appreciate a 5-star review. That would be amazing because it helps other people find the podcast, helps the audience grow, and helps with the algorithms, all that stuff. Go and subscribe on YouTube. You can find our channel with the handle at SW Escape Podcast. All links are in the description below, as well as handles for all the socials, all the links for ALKY Solutions, for ORBITKEY, all that stuff is down below. So shoot us a reply. What was your favorite gripe tonight? We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you in the next one. May the Force be with you.